Welcome to Talk World Radio, a half-hour discussion of politics as if the people mattered. I'm David Swanson. This week on Talk World Radio, we are welcoming Greg Mello, who is Executive Director of the Los Alamos Study Group, and we are talking about nuclear testing and nuclear weapons and all things nuclear. Greg Mello, welcome to Talk World Radio.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
So not too long ago, Trump said something stupid, unclear, and dangerous. That covers pretty much anything he says, but you know in particular what I'm talking about.
Yes. He made some chaotically meaningless remark about nuclear testing. It was almost meaningless. He did say we're going to be testing on an equal basis with our adversaries, so-called, or with Russia and China, I forget which. That meant that we wouldn't be exploding nuclear weapons because they haven't, not in decades. So, however, because it's Trump, there's always ambiguity and a bit of chaos. And so many people jumped on this because nuclear testing has a specific meaning, and which is exploding a nuclear warhead, having a nuclear explosion. But really, he didn't, to the extent he meant something clear, he didn't mean that, because he clarified it. We're going to do what Russia and China are doing. Well, they've been testing delivery systems.
Right.
So last night, early this morning, there was a test of the Minuteman III missile from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. Whether that was, long planned, I don't know.
Indeed, on the day before this was recorded, there was a missile test, as there often is, from Vandenberg Air Force Base. Just to be clear, Trump may have no idea what it is that Russia and China have done. And the headlines that were all over the Western media were that Russia and China have done nuclear testing, therefore Trump wants to do nuclear testing. And if you didn't read to, paragraph 18, it wasn't much clearer than that. So specifically, what have China and Russia done?
Well, China has been beefing up its nuclear arsenal. They paraded weapons in the recent victory parade, both quantitatively and qualitatively. And Russia has recently tested two brand new weapons. One is a nuclear-powered cruise missile, which is a technological achievement. I don't know how reliable it is. It's certainly not safe, in the sense that the U.S. wants its weapons to be safe. But it can, in principle, loiter for a month in the air and can go anywhere. And the other one is a large nuclear torpedo, or if you like, underwater robot that can go on intercontinental range and could explode in a harbor and wipe out the entire harbor city of whatever arbitrary size. It's a very, very scary weapon.
And both of these weapons are nuclear powered, but also capable of delivering nuclear weapons, right?
Yes, it would be very likely that they would only be produced in a nuclear variant because of there's conventional weapons that could reach those same targets by other means. So the whole point of those weapons is probably nuclear deterrence and trying to convince the United States that the Golden Dome of Trump is a complete idiotic plan, which it is. And it won't protect anything. And now with these new weapons, it's even more so. As far as actually exploding nuclear weapons, there's really no plan to do that. There's no real support for it other than a few people on the far nuclear right there, and I would emphasize few. Um, the Warhead Agency, the NNSA, has no intention or desire to test nuclear weapons. And they don't have the personnel, they don't have the infrastructure. If they wanted to, which they don't, it would take probably at least 2 years, 3 years, maybe even forever to do this because the last one was in 1992. The people who know about this are long gone from the system. All the current scientists, nuclear weapon designers are all oriented toward computer modeling, buttressed by very detailed underground subcritical experiments that altogether are it's a multi-billion-dollar program, and they are getting more data out of these subcritical experiments than they ever got out of nuclear testing. They have no desire to go back.
And in fact, the Secretary of Energy, which is, of course, half nuclear weapons, the so-called Energy Department, eventually said we have no plans to test nuclear weapons, meaning explode actual weapons. But prior to that, I saw various right-wing Republican Congress members had said, hell yes, let's test nuclear weapons. And prior to Trump's election, I think the Project 2025 think tank report and other corporate lobbyists were saying we need to restart testing nuclear weapons. So there is some momentum contributed by whatever comes out of Trump's mouth, and that's not necessarily totally harmless in the long run.
Yes, well, that's right. It's true. And so on the one hand, we're not going to go back to nuclear testing, but on the other hand, it's not harmless, like you say. Why? Because it puts nuclear weapons back on the top of somebody's talking points. It provides a rationale for maintaining and even increasing the budgets of the nuclear weapons laboratories. What they do, it diverts attention away from the enormous cost overruns that are occurring as they try to build these very fancy underground machines. I mean, so we're talking about two linear accelerators at right angles, big, expensive, big science machines, but underground, and like 1,000 feet underground, and blowing up subscale nuclear weapons cores or parts of nuclear weapons, and watching this making a movie of this in super high speed time. It's very expensive to make all that work.
Which motivates somebody to do it, because somebody gets money out of anything that's very expensive. We're speaking with Greg Mello, who is executive director at the Los Alamos Study Group. I'm afraid some of our listeners might stumble over the remark you made a couple minutes ago that the U.S. tries to have its nuclear weapons be safe, and Russia isn't doing. I'm sorry, what the hell is a safe nuclear weapon?
Right. Good. That's a good thing to catch. So the Russian nuclear-powered missile, I don't know whether it spews has a nuclear trail behind it. It might. I think there were 7 technicians killed in an explosion during development. When this thing crashes, it is a little nuclear reactor, and there's going to be spent fuel. And so if it, I think that's why you're not going to set one of these things into the air just for something small, because it is going to create an international incident, whatever happens. And it's not safe to operate. None of them, a nuclear weapon is not safe, never safe. is supposed to be as dangerous as possible, but only to the people it's aimed at. It's not supposed to be unsafe to your own troops.
So if it's loaded up with a conventional weapon, but it's sent under nuclear power up into the skies for weeks and then down somewhere, intentionally or otherwise, there is some sort of a nuclear result in the end.
There will be some kind of nuclear result. Yes, there'll be a cleanup, a major cleanup, if it were in peacetime. But of course, it would all be encompassed in a nuclear explosion in war.
And so when Russia announces that it has tested this thing, where did it land? What happened?
Good question. I would say that it either landed in the water or it had a parachute. It was tested in the Arctic. And there was a NATO ship nearby, and the Russians said, good, we want them to see it. But as for the details, I don't know. They said it went 14,000 kilometers, I think, and was up for several hours, many hours. And then they brought it down.
And so, as you mentioned, Greg, Mello having these new types of so-called delivery systems of missiles, super fast missiles, et cetera, creates additional problems as if they were needed for the fantasy of being able to shoot all the missiles out of the sky with what Reagan called Star Wars or Trump calls the Golden Dome. Right. Is there anyone who thinks such a thing can actually work? Is there a consensus that this is just nuts?
Well, this is a funny reality that we're now in, and that's a question. It's a really good question. I stopped working on it because it seemed so absurd, and surely would fall out of the political sphere due to its own lack of factuality, but it hasn't yet. And there's I think, a very poignant moment in the new movie, A House of Dynamite, where the soldiers who are doing their jobs, they're doing what they're taught, they're doing it competently, and they fail to hit a single warhead coming in without decoys, not a swarm, it's not maneuvering. And in other words, the simplest possible target, they fail to hit it. And they are, one of them says, we did everything right, didn't we? And dang it, I think that pretty much symbolizes where we are with Golden Dome and with actually quite a few other things. We did it, we believed in the fantasy, didn't we? We trained, and for the poor kids there, young men and women, it's a complete heartbreak. And the bubble pops. There was no reasonable surety that could be shot down. And that is true of a lot of things now in our society. We're a society of fantasies, and nuclear deterrence is one of them.
And in some cases, the fantasies are presented as such. We're going to fund research to see if this thing might ever work. But I recall within a day or two of that movie, A House of Dynamite, showing up on Netflix, you had a rebuttal from the Pentagon saying, actually, our missile defense tests have worked 100% of the time. Now, this is stated as fact. What do you make of that?
It's complete crap. And ask Ted Postel, well, you can't ask Phil Coyle, he's deceased, but I mean, the real experts, I'm afraid that we are losing a critical mass, if you will, of establishment experts who are willing and able to shoot down these fantasies.
Yeah. The the thing, Greg Mello, that struck me about this film, A House of Dynamite, and I hope I'm not giving a slight spoiler here to people who haven't seen it. I think this has been widely reported, but uh, the dilemma that strikes some of the characters is, if a missile may be coming and it may destroy one city, what possible moral or rational argument can you make for a second strike, for shooting back? That is, there's all this demand, let's have nations forswear first strike, which the US government, among others, won't even do. We want to do first nuclear strike. But what in the heck is the basis for saying I'm going to do a second strike? Like, either the world's already largely going to be destroyed or one city's going to be destroyed. But if you destroy some distant, faraway city, or, as I think all US second strike nuclear plans call for, many, many faraway cities, you're dooming the world to destruction, whether it was already doomed or not. You're not accomplishing something. What is it you're accomplishing? This seems to be the dilemma. Is, hey, what about what's the excuse for second strike?
Right. And this is I think, one of the wonderful aspects of this movie, that it can generate this type of discussion. Um, Many years ago, it was in the late, maybe 99, Helen Caldicott organized a big conference about nuclear deterrence, nuclear weapons. Robert McNamara was there. And he said, my advice to Kennedy and Johnson was to never use nuclear weapons. Even if we were struck with nuclear weapons, do not strike back. Under no circumstances whatsoever should you order the use of nuclear weapons. It will always be worse if you do. There's no reason to do it. Well, making that shift from the threat of using nuclear weapons, which is at the heart of nuclear deterrence, to the reality that you can't, holy cow, that's really, it's quite it's exposing nuclear deterrence as a kind of oxymoron or contradiction. And it's very hard for the characters in the movie. It's very hard for us. There's no such thing as arms control in nuclear weapons. It has a kind of a provisional, partial truth, partial falsity, but in reality, you can't really use these weapons without expecting total self-destruction and omnicide.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg Mello, but Kennedy and Bush the first took small steps toward unilaterally disarming that were then mirrored, echoed by other countries. If there's no possible reason to ever use the things, if deterrence is the notion that they're deterring something is speculation, since they clearly don't deter non-nuclear war or terrorism, and they don't win wars and so forth, what possible argument is there for not unilaterally disarming?
Well, I don't think any, David. We're in a relatively small minority. But Paul Nitze, he said this in 99, that after a whole career, whole lifetime of being a nuclear hawk and every other kind of hawk, he said, I don't see any reason we can't do that. And that was kind of his parting gesture to the world. And I don't see a reason why either. There's nobody who wants, well, never mind, it's going on, but the system is hardwired and maintained by the money that goes in, by our ideological fixations, by the careers of the people in it. A lot of things besides national security, besides all the benefits that peace would bring us. And It has to be dismantled. We have to dismantle the House of Dynamite.
The scientists who set the doomsday clock is maybe not a scientific measurement itself, but they're suggesting that we're at greater risk than ever before of nuclear Armageddon. Do you think that's right? And if so, what do you think are some of the factors that have put us here?
I do think we are. And I think the factors are the lack of communication. That was, since we're talking about the movie, we have that in the movie. The context is one of the United States being at war with Russia through its Ukraine proxy. And Russia has absorbed attacks on its strategic assets, its strategic nuclear assets. And they have patiently sat through that, and how this brinkmanship that the United States has been willing to entertain. And I'm sorry if that seems one-sided to you, but that's how I see the situation. Is very dangerous. To depend on the patience of another nuclear power. We don't understand that the U.S. foreign policy establishment, clearly doesn't understand these foreign, not just Putin, not just the Russian national security establishment, but also North Korea and also really China. I don't think there's a good understanding of any of these parties because the DC world is so self-referential.
Yeah. In the movie, as I recall, they suspect the missiles coming from North Korea, which nobody even mentions trying to talk to at all. And they're contemplating whether to fire back at China or Russia or both. It's like communication. Right. Plus, there's no more buffer zone, right? There's no countries in between anymore. And there are not very many treaties left. And the nukes are being proliferated into more countries and the nuclear energy into more countries with obvious intent, plus stealth airplanes that can drop the things, plus all the accidents that people don't seem to realize how many near misses from accidents there have been. I'm very glad we're still here today.
Mm-hmm. We're in a declining empire, which is a scary place to be because the structures, the people at the top want to continue, and they think it's possible, and to continue in the same or to make America great again. Well, America's not going to be great in the same exact way. It could be great qualitatively. Lives could be enriched. People could be happier. We could have a better social contract, a lot of things, but we're not going to be rich forever, that much richer than everybody else forever. That's done with violence, and the world won't stand for it.
What do you think people listening to this program should do who want to reduce the risk of ending all life or a huge chunk of it with nuclear explosions?
Mm-hmm. I think we need to, there's a million ways, right? And a million things that we can do. Everybody has a unique standpoint and surprisingly powerful standpoint because nobody else can do what you can do. Nobody knows the people you know. I think the first thing is to overcome this sense of paralysis and lack of empowerment, if you like. We also need to reach out to our erstwhile political adversaries on the right. Trump is not going to listen to anybody on the left. He doesn't need those votes. He's thrown them away. We have to find what would be extremely powerful in this country is a left-right peace coalition that brings some people who have the courage to vote against, in this case, Trump, And he needs all those Republican votes, to just about all of them, to do anything, because it's a narrow majority right now. And at the same time, if the Democrats should win the midterms, gain control over one or the other or both houses of Congress, it'll be narrow. We have to work on our Democrats who are war hawks, which is most of them. And so we have to sort of settle into the reality that we may have a long haul here to turn things around. There's no silver bullets. And yet, people are way more, our experience is people are way more powerful than they think they are. If they they make that commitment to really transform themselves while working for peace.
And way more powerful than the government wants them to think they are, of course.
Of course.
We've got about 2 minutes left. Greg Mello, maybe I'm asking too long of a question for 2 minutes, but I just wish people knew what was in the Non-Proliferation Treaty, that it requires getting rid of nukes and all other weapons. I mean, you can't even get anyone to believe that when you tell them. And there are new treaties being created, but none of the nuclear powers joining. There are treaties ending and everyone lamenting the ending of treaties. But there's this one on the books that we could organize around that requires getting rid of all the nuclear weapons and then all the other weapons too, which is an incredible educational exercise just to tell anyone that. What do you think?
I agree completely. I 100%. And I think you've hit the nail on the head too. Now, the educational exercise, an audience that we could engage more are the people who build these things and the people who work on them. Here, at a laboratory near us, Los Alamos Lab, they lose 800 or 900 people every year after they are trained, after this investment is made in their careers, they leave. This is very hard for them. It's a crisis. And this same phenomenon is occurring to a lesser degree elsewhere as well. We need to talk to people and not self-deter our educational abilities.
Absolutely, and I'm sure the Los Alamos Study Group is helpful and encouraging of those people who have left or might be contemplating leaving.
Yes, we try. It's a labor-intensive sort of thing, and so yes, it's a very worthwhile.
Well, we will have links up at talkworldradio.org. We've been speaking with Greg Mello, who is Executive Director of the Los Alamos Study Group. Greg, thanks for everything you've been doing and for coming on Talk World Radio.
Thank you so much, David, and more power to you in all your wonderful work.
This is Talk World Radio. I'm David Swanson. Take action at rootsaction.org. Help end war at worldbeyondwar.org. Read or listen to today's Peace Almanac entry at peacealmanac.org. All past shows can be heard at talkworldradio.org. Talk World Radio is produced in Charlottesville, Virginia, and syndicated by Pacifica Network. There is no way to peace. Peace is the way.